point. What do you mean finding a middle ground? Conservatives say mass deport every single immigrant living on U.S. soil. You say don't mass deport any immigrant living on U.S. soil. Is the middle ground that we just deport, what, 10 million migrants then? Like, the idea that there is a golden mean in every situation is perhaps one of the most commonly misunderstood positions that people just slap on to every single instance where it doesn't fit. Okay.
Well, hello everybody. It's the holiday season 2024. I'm recording this on the day after Christmas, having a glass of bubbly while I record this. I hope you're all doing very well and having a Merry Christmas and spending it wisely with family and, relaxing. But I'm back in the saddle here doing some work for you, and we are looking at a clip where Hasan Piker, nephew of Cenk of the Young Turks and noted wokerati extremist, is basically, he's been drifting further and further apart from his uncle Cenk Uyghur's viewpoints, because Cenk, who always called himself on his the Young Turks channel, he always styled himself as a progressive and now as a populist, seems to be moving more and more towards the right. And Hasan Piker just made a good point there. I agree with him, but of course in the opposite direction. He said, how can we find middle ground with these horrible conservatives? The horrible conservatives like Charlie Kirk say that they want to deport every immigrant in the U.S. And, good thinking people like me, Hasan Piker, say, no, we should deport nobody. So what, are we supposed to find a middle ground with these animals? Say, let's split the difference and deport 10 million. And he says, no, we shouldn't find middle ground. And I agree, we shouldn't find middle ground. Yes, Hasan Piker, we certainly should deport every single illegal, every single criminal, legal or not, if they're an alien. We should get rid of H1B visas. We should only be allowing immigration from European countries, as was the case prior to 1965, the 1965 Immigration and Naturalization Act. Oh, there's many things we should do, Hasan Piker. Many, many things. And I agree, we should not compromise with leftist, Marxist-leaning idiots like you. Let's get into it.
Okay. You can't tolerate their intolerance because their intolerance is inherently illogical. Their intolerance is not coming from a place of genuine concern, but pure anger. And oftentimes, it is a very apt mechanism of distraction and deflection away from the real vectors of harm in contemporary society. It's stupid. This doesn't mean that you should, actively treat anyone and everyone as though they're Charlie Kirk, you know what I mean? Like a professional villain. But it certainly means that, stay true to your convictions and try to find areas where you do agree that do not pertain to shitting on trans people or shitting on black people, or you can stay civil, especially when you're having a conversation with, normal conservatives who are victims of propaganda themselves, understanding that they arrived at these positions due to so much social conditioning, okay? You just said not to compromise. You need to be more careful with your words. Yes, never compromise on your values. The f do you mean? Never compromise on your values and never capitulate to right-wing framing. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that you should also be antagonistic or aggressive to some random conservative person that you met, okay? I try to play this delicate line fairly well to the best of my ability. You can find similarities, you can find shared interests, you can find areas of civility, you can find areas where you're in agreement. That is how you're supposed to do that. That is actually a very successful way, in my opinion, of actively de-radicalizing people. But the similarities that you find should not be centered around how you also personally think, yeah, some of these trans people are weird and gross. Like, creating a permission structure to shit on trans people is stupid. Because all of a sudden, now you're just continuously normalizing their attitude. You're giving them additional security in their bigotry rather than try to decouple them away from this bigoted way of understanding the world. Now, of course, Charlie Kirk himself is not, a random conservative guy. He is actively working to create more random conservative guys and doing it fairly successfully. He is a part of a major machine, and his wealth and his prominence in this world relies on him successfully doing so, relies on him actively turning people more conservative.
So you got to know what to convince the American people of and what to hold your ground on. And the number one thing to hold your ground on is constitutional rights. So I'm going to do some...
Like the Second Amendment.
What? You said not to compromise with conservatives is about finding...
Well, that was actually an interesting clip there. So it shows Hasan Piker's uncle, Cenk of the Young Turks, on Turning Point USA with Charlie Kirk, who apparently is the ultimate enemy to Hasan Piker. And he said, yeah, Cenk Uygur was doing exactly what Hasan Piker just suggested, finding an area where they can agree on, which is on constitutional rights. And Charlie Kirk said, like the Second Amendment. Now, Cenk Uygur, they're probably about to disagree because they have different views on how the Second Amendment should be either implemented or regulated. And what Hasan Piker is saying here, has been saying this whole time, is actually makes perfect sense, just from the opposite point of view. You know, yes, as traditionalists, conservatives, if you want to call them that. I don't really like the term because I think conservatism is a failed ideology, frankly. Hasn't conserved a damn thing. But let's say traditional, very traditional, paleo-conservative. Yes, I agree. You shouldn't just go out slamming people. It's like in your family. You know, if you guys get in disagreements on politics over Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner, that's not the way to do it. You know, just you can find out where people agree and where you agree and disagree with other people, and just look for areas of agreement. There's no need to have a big argument about it. Getting into a fight, it's not going to change anybody's mind. It's just going to make everybody pissed off and create a bad atmosphere.
Middle ground? No, dude, you completely misunderstand my point, okay? You completely misunderstand my point. What do you mean finding a middle ground? Conservatives say mass deport every single immigrant living on U.S. soil. You say don't mass deport any immigrant living on U.S. soil. Is the middle ground that we just deport, 10 million migrants then? Like, the idea that there is a golden mean in every situation is perhaps one of the most commonly misunderstood positions that people just slap on to every single instance where it doesn't fit, okay? It is so stupid. If the fundamental principles are completely flawed, you can't compromise on that. Okay, no, it's about trying to understand why they think that way. Usually they have misinformation. It's about educating them by finding where they're at. What do you mean? Okay, you can't say it's about finding middle ground. Ironic, because you just started this process by saying you need to be more careful with your words. And then you literally went into a position that is entirely different than this. Maybe you should be more careful with your words, chatter. The f do you mean? You say it's about finding middle ground. No, it's about trying to understand why they think that way. Usually they have misinformation. It's about educating them by finding where they're at. Yeah, I don't disagree with this. And not only do I not disagree with this is something that I believe personally as well. I know where a lot of that, that false belief comes from. I just described it. If you were listening to my words, you would have understood it. I said...
Of course, they assume that if somebody disagrees with them, that it's a false belief. That's the whole thing. Of course, you could say the same thing about us on the other side. You know, if we disagree with them, we attribute it to false belief or miseducation. But I think it's more fundamental than that. You know, the whole point of conservatism or traditionalism is to understand that long-standing traditions are what got Western civilization to a point where it is so sought after and so wealthy, where people can live in this way that other people around the world envy. And it was all those long-standing traditions that got us here. But now, many people, especially leftists, because they always want to change and improve, quote-unquote, things, they don't realize that it was those traditions that got us here. And that by changing those traditions or just wholesale eliminating those traditions, it will destroy the very foundation of the society of what made us what we are today. they just can't understand that. That's the difference. The whole point, they can think whatever they want, but they shouldn't have the ability to change something. If they want to go try something new somewhere else, okay, fine. But they want to try something new here in the West, where the traditions have proven over decades and centuries to work.
It comes from social conditioning. But it's not about finding middle ground. It's about finding common ground. And it's about reorienting people's anger to the appropriate vectors of pain.
Our anger should be orientated towards those who are trying to destroy the traditions, and that's leftists. It's not immigrants or trans people or whatever. They're not trying to destroy it. They're just tools used by leftists, basically, to destroy. Even if leftists don't think they're destroying, they think they're being compassionate by allowing wholesale change, which has the effect of destroying.
It's about recognizing where that harm comes from and then saying, I see you, I feel you, and I know exactly where it's coming from. It's not like one of the easiest ways to kind of just judo your way out of this argument whenever someone is being like hyper transphobic is telling them like, it's not, your manager is not a trans person, okay? BlackRock buying out the remainder of the available housing inventory is not conducted at the behest of big trans. It's not a trans person, not an undocumented migrant that's like your landlord that is causing you pain in your life. It's not an undocumented migrant that's your manager, okay? And even if they were, they're not doing that because they're an undocumented migrant or trans. They're doing that because that's the position that they have arrived at in society. Society has normalized this kind of infliction of pain. Yeah. People be like, I'm so mad that eggs are $8. And it's like, yeah, it's because of trans people, It's the corporate structure.
Yeah, of course. Nobody does that, though. That's just a complete straw man argument. Nobody's blaming trans people or even immigrants or whatever for eggs being expensive. And yeah, it's probably true. If we did kick out all the illegal aliens, as we should do, just the illegals, then yeah, there would be a period where things probably would get more expensive, because it is true, as things stand now, we have let ourselves get to a point in America, at least, where illegals do provide very cheap labor in the agricultural industry. But that should never have been allowed to get to that point in the first place. And we should be having our own people do work, not hiring other people to do cheap work and then undercut decent wages for our own indigenous peoples.
It's the fact that American Congress is bought and sold by corporations.
To hold your ground on is constitutional rights. So I'm going to do some...
Like the Second Amendment.
I mean, here, hit him back. Hit him back with the Second Amendment is a false interpretation. The modern understanding of the Second Amendment is completely at odds with the way that it was historically interpreted.
I'm going to need a citation on that, Hasan Piker. I believe the Supreme Court has several rulings on the interpretation of the Second Amendment.
Go ahead. Don't let him get away with that. Come on. Shaky Gurga. Why is he turning to a Alan Combs in the Hannity and Combs structure here? It hurts my feelings to see my uncle behave like this.
Let's see if Cenk replies.
No, I know. So guys, look at that.
Oh, yo, can you bust this open? Can you start?
But
You were asking for that one. I'm sorry.
No problem. No, but look, that was an important moment, because we totally disagree on that issue, but we just shook hands anyway. And you know what we'll do afterwards? We'll have a beer.
I have the...
Okay, so Cenk didn't actually reply, but he didn't lose his rag, which is already saying something for Cenk. So anyway, I think this is interesting. Like I said, it's interesting that Hasan points these things out. That yeah, I agree. We should not compromise. It's always been the so-called conservatives who have compromised, always, which is why we're in the mess we're in today. Basically, the conservatives never should have compromised. Never. So that's my hardcore realization, my hardcore implementation, my hardcore interpretation of what we need to do. And yeah, some hard decisions are going to have to be made, and some hard actions are going to have to be taken. and that will determine our future. So let me know what you think about all that. I'm going to have another sip of my Christmas bubbly. I hope you all are having a good holiday season, and I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and to leave a comment.